Here we go. How about that? Is that any better? Let's see. We only did 4 or 5 of these, and the audio is now coming in yet better. Great, thank you so much. So, anyways, as I was saying, use the chat to ask questions. Say hello, and let me know if my audio doesn't work. This is almost embarrassing since this is literally like my 100th live stream. But I always forget that I have 2 mute buttons, and I apparently need to be reminded that I have 2 mute buttons. So, and also maybe I was just checking to see if you guys were awake because it is 6 a.m. in the morning, and we're just checking things out. All right, so let's get started. We're gonna jump into the material. As I mentioned, if you have any questions at any point, do please feel free to take advantage of that chat. I have a moderator. He's just a voice in the darkness, apparently, as he likes to call himself here. And so please feel free, take advantage of that chat and ask your questions. We specifically me, but also that voice that's in the darkness. We're here to answer your questions. So obviously, I will have material. I have some presentations to go over. We're going to be in Jira, and so I only have a couple of slides to go over, and then we're going to be a lot in the tool. So let's just jump into it. So again, in the chat, let me know where you're tuning in from, and at any point, if you have any questions, do please feel free to just let me know what those questions are, and we'll take care of it. All right. So here we are, Jira Admin for Beginners. This is an ACE event sponsored by, or I guess not sponsored, but taken care of by Atlassian. And we are in April 2024. Here's some of the things we're going to be covering. So we're going to be covering the basics of Jira Administration. So hopefully you're new to being a Jira admin, or hopefully you've taken one of my other courses, maybe the project management one, or maybe you took my Jira software for beginners. I have quite a few, or maybe you've just stumbled across my YouTube channel, which we'll talk about in a second. But this course here is specifically for Jira admins and specifically the basics. I want to give you that 80% solution of what you need to feel like a good admin. If you're new to this, maybe you're a Scrum Master, maybe you're a project manager, and because you're the Jira person, you automatically inherit the Yes, I know, slideshow. I don't like being full screen, folks. I don't like, I like being able to see the future. But yeah, so maybe you just inherited, again, being a Jira admin. You're like, what is this Jira admin stuff? How do we modify all these things? So these are the things that we're going to be talking about: projects, issue types, workflows, custom fields, screens, and some next steps. But before we get started, a little bit about me, build some credibility. I am Alex Ortiz. I have a bachelor's in computer engineering, a master's in systems engineering. I've been using Jira for I think coming up on 8 years now. So it's been a while. It's been a minute. I use Jira, and I use the Atlassian tools, I would say 12 hours a day, almost every single day, at least Monday through Friday. But I do use it from time to time on the weekends, an unhealthy amount as well. I do run a YouTube channel, so if my face looks familiar, that is probably because you've seen me on the internet. So my goal is if you ever Google or YouTube any question in Jira or Atlassian related, my face pops up. So hopefully you've seen me before. Also, you are here on the Jira Life. And an interesting thing, this is the first time that we've been doing these since January that I don't need to ask you to subscribe, because guess what? We hit 1,000 subscribers during the last session a few weeks ago for the Jira software for beginners. But feel free, if you are here in the Jira Life, to smash the subscribe button. It does help us out. We are now currently just focused on watch hours. So if you want to watch this course, make sure you watch all the other courses. And we have weekly interviews that we do a live stream every single Thursday. And so we'll have one in a couple of days here. And we're going to be at Team 24 next week. And we're going to be doing a ton of content coming at you from the Atlassian, from the conference, from the floor of the expo, and various other locations. So make sure you subscribe to the channel, because you're definitely not going to want to miss out on some of that. And then finally, I have some additional resources which I'll revisit. But if you scan that QR code, you'll get some of those items. So let's talk about projects. We're going to start defining the project templates. I want to walk you through what the different templates are, what's available, the differences between a team and company managed, and then talk about a little bit about standardized configurations in Jira. So I'm out of the presentation. I don't like being in these presentations, so we're going to be inside of Jira. Let me zoom in just a little bit so you can see what's going on here. And here we are in Jira. So one of the first things that you do as an admin, one of the first critical things that I think is very, very important as an administrator, is getting the project set up correctly. There's so many different needs, so many different ways to use the Atlassian tools. And there's so many different flavors of Jira. In fact, there's 5 of them. There's Jira Software, which is what we're going to be focusing on. There's Jira Service Management, Jira Work Management, Jira Product Jira Product Management, Jira Product Discovery. Sorry if I knew them. And then we have Jira Align. And so there's quite a few of these. And it's, as an admin, you're like, well, which one do we need to use? So which one do I give my team? Which project template do I use? And you should know that as a Jira admin, most of the time, it's upon an administrator to create the project. Okay, most users, especially if you've changed the settings that are by default that allow anybody to create a team managed project, hopefully you get rid of that. And so, if anytime that anybody wants to create a project, it's on to the administrator to set that up. And so, this is something that I usually invest a good amount of time in because it's the first question. It's the very first step as a Jira admin when you're onboarding a team, when you're getting a team going. The first question is, well, what kind of project do you need? Do you need a Jira software project, Jira service management project, work management? What kind of work are you doing? And so I want to show you the options that are available to you so that you help set up the right one. Because when you hit this create project, and also I'm going to take a little quick time out. The disclaimer is that this is all for the cloud. A lot of what we're going to be talking about will be relevant if you're an admin in the data center, but this is mainly for the cloud. This little bit here about these different projects, you might not have them all. I think you have everything except work management. No, except for product discovery. I think you do have work management, and I do believe you have service management, although I think they might be called something different. But I think product discovery is the only one that's cloud. But other than that, everything else should, I think, feel very similar. And if you're in a data center, I'm so sorry, but you should get to the cloud. That's my only 2 cents. Okay, so let's focus on software development then real quickly. This is the most common one. When most people think of Jira, they are thinking Jira software development. And as you can see here, I'm already in the Jira software one. You can see that we have quite a few options. Let me start off by breaking your hearts real quick. Ignore top-level planning, ignore product discovery, and ignore bug tracking. Those are not going to be any templates that are going to be that helpful. Top planning is kind of interesting because it makes an advanced roadmap. And as you can see, it's a premium-only feature. So I would ignore that one for now, just for it's not in scope for the class. And I think your team would take value of having a top level plan, but you wouldn't start them off in a top level plan. Most of the time you have to be in one of these two for the top level plan to make more sense. The product discovery, I think this is misplaced. This shouldn't belong in here. This is Jira product discovery. I don't know why I asked him to stuck that in there. And the bug tracking doesn't actually do anything. It creates you a project, but you still need to go put a board in it, and the board has to be a Kanban or Scrum. So I'm not quite sure why that exists there at all. But anyways, Kanban or Scrum are the main 2 templates that you have really to your disposal here. And fundamentally, they work very, very similar. But the one thing I want to let you know, when you're in a software development and you're trying to figure out which of these 2 we pick, it's really just the maturity of the team. How comfortable are they with Agile? Are they going to be doing sprints, estimating with story points? Are they looking for burn down reports? Because if they're saying yes to those 3 questions, specifically those 3 questions, then the answer is most likely going to be Scrum. So if a team wants to take advantage of all the functionality of Jira software, Scrum is your best bet. Kanban, I like to give to teams that are not quite there yet. They still want to be Agile-ish, but they're just not quite ready. So this is the conversations as an admin that I'm having with my end user to figure out which template do you need. So it's a critical conversation to have. So aside from Jira software, we have Jira Service Management. So this is basically Jira's help desk. So if a team needs some sort of a help desk type of system, then a service management template is most likely what you're going to want to use for them. Now, key questions that I ask my end users is, do you need some sort of an intake? Do you need to receive input from licensed and most likely unlicensed users? And if the answer is yes, then you're probably looking at a service management template, because this will give you a portal of sorts that you can open up to either the internet or external or internal customers and or just anybody you want. And so this is really good because you don't have to pay for licenses. There's an approval workflow. So if your team's like saying like, hey, we need specific approval steps in our workflow, well then JSM, the service management templates, are going to be the best ones for you. Now there's a whole lot here. There's a lot of different templates. The 2 most common ones are going to be this ITSM one, and oops, sorry about that. And then there's general service management for IT teams. 90% of my projects are this one, this general service one, and 10% are this ITSM one. I like this one because it's way easier. This one gives you all the complexity, and it's just a little bit overkill sometimes, but I like to start off here because you can eventually turn this one into an ITSM one. Now, work management is an interesting one. So this is kind of where I'm going to stop here with work management. But the work management is going to be for your teams that are not quite ready for Agile. So if teams are looking for something like a Trello, like a Monday, like an Asana, they just want a task tracker. They just want a very linear, an easy, simple tool that allows them to collaborate as a team, but they don't want to worry about backlogs. They don't want to worry about boards. They don't want to worry about planning sprints or estimating work. Then your work management templates are going to be the ones for you. Now, again, the reason I bring this up and the reason I spend so much time is this is the critical first step. This is, again, when I'm onboarding any team as a Jira admin, the very first question I got to figure out from them is, what kind of Jira project do you want? And it's an important question that I think gets overlooked a lot because this is your foundational first step. How you answer this question will affect the rest of what you do as an admin for these particular teams, because this is the foundation. So again, spending a little bit of time here just to break down these different project templates, because I do believe it's critical that, again, a lot of people usually skip over and just go with the defaults. And so I want to make sure you were well aware. So for the rest of the class, we're just going to go with this Scrum one. As I mentioned, this gives you all the bells and whistles. So as a Jira admin, if you want to be as involved and have the greatest amount of flexibility, challenge, just capabilities of using and leveraging Jira, then the software development Scrum one is going to be for you. But there's another critical step that we have to take. So I'm going to click on this use template. And here we have to make a decision. As a Jira admin, company managed is either your best friend or your nightmare. Because when you go company managed, you unlock the true power, the full power of Jira. Can you convert a team to a Scrum team? Sean, that is a great question, and it's an interesting question that that requires a little bit more context. So when I pick, this is a really interesting thing that we're doing here. When we pick here at this level, and we're looking at the templates between Kanban and Scrum, Atlassian has a typo, and they've had a typo for well over a year. I've been making noise, and Atlassian doesn't seem to want to change this. But when you pick Kanban, you'll notice that we have these issue types here and this workflow, to do, in progress, and done. When I pick on Scrum, you'll notice we have this exact same issue types and the exact same workflow, except it's not. Atlassian has a mistake. This page here is incorrect. This workflow is not what you get when you pick Kanban. So you need to look at this from two different perspectives. When I pick Kanban, a specific set of statuses are going to be implemented onto my project. It's going to be built with this out-of-the-box statuses in the workflow. The statuses of Kanban is not to do, and I think it does have in progress and done, but it doesn't start with to do. It is backlog, selected for development, in progress, and done. When I pick Scrum, the statuses are to do, in progress, and done. And so fundamentally, they're different workflows. So when you ask me, can I change between Scrum or Kanban? The answer is technically yes, because Scrum and Kanban is at the board level, but you get messed up, and I'll use a stronger word. You get screwed with the workflows, because the workflow for Kanban, let me rephrase, the workflow for the Scrum project, the to do, in progress, and done, is not compatible with the Kanban one, because you lose a status. And I can show you a demo real quickly. We can jump into Jira, but I would say that if you have a Kanban workflow, or if you pick the Kanban template, you should be able to go to Scrum easier. But if you pick Scrum and you're like, this is too much, and you want to go to Kanban, you're going to have to change your workflow, because it is incompatible. At least, I mean, it's not like it's going to yell at you, but it will give you a degraded experience if you go from Scrum to Kanban. At the project level, specifically with the workflow. The boards, though, you can have, regardless of which one you pick, you can have any board you want. You can have 10 Scrum boards and 20 Kanban boards all in the same project. So it doesn't really care from that perspective. But yeah, this part right here, the workflow, and I really do wish Atlassian would change this, because it is wrong. It will screw you over. Now, continuing with the team here. So when it comes time to make a decision here, if you're going company or team managed, again, if as an admin, you want company, maybe you don't if you're not a good admin, but you definitely want company because this is going to give you the ability to standardize. It's going to be giving you the ability to unlock all the features, all the capabilities, all the configurations you can make as a Jira admin available in company managed. Team managed are great. They're very useful, but they're really for teams that don't have a dedicated Jira admin. And these team managed ones are going to be a great option to just get started into Jira and not have to worry about the repercussions of your actions as a Jira administrator, especially when you don't have that skill set. So this team one is great, but it's a handicapped version of Jira. So you will have, in my opinion, a degraded experience if you go team managed. So 99.999% of the time, I go company managed just because it's going to give me everything. So I'm going to call this one my April J Jira admin class. And this option right here, the share settings with an existing project, this is something that's unique to these company managed projects where I can set up the workflows, the fields, the required fields, the permissions, the notifications, the issue types, right? I can configure all of that for my projects and then make it a template. And I simply make it a template by doing the work, right? Setting all those configurations correctly. And then when I go make another project later down the road, I base that project off of an existing project. And so what this is going to do here is it's going to take whatever settings, workflows, fields, screens, issue types, everything, permissions, right? All that stuff from this JAJD project, and it's going to overlay it into this AJAC project. And so this is great if you want to standardize your configurations and get everybody on the same page. Now, for the purpose of this demo, I'm going to leave that off, but I just wanted to throw that out that that's what that's for. So anyway, so that's all that I wanted to cover with respect to a project. Again, very, very important questions that you got to ask yourselves. As you can see here, this is my to-do in progress and done. And just to prove to you that I'm not crazy, I'm going to go and create a Kanban one. Notice the to-do in progress and done. I'm going to hit on use template. I'm going to do April Kanban demo, and I'm going to click next. And watch what happens when the board is created here. My statuses are backlog selected for development in progress and done. And so while I can and have the ability to add a Scrum board to this Kanban one and vice versa, the backlog messes me up because I have an extra status that is critical. When I move an item from the backlog to the board, because I understand why Atlassian did this, because this is like if I were to create something here, like this is a task, and I create this item, it'll be in my backlog and it's on my board. So it's 2-for-1 special. But they gave us this powerful feature where I can actually configure the board, and they have this Kanban board column that I can actually move this status over to this Kanban one. And look at this. This is a dedicated space away from the board. So this starts mimicking the behavior of a Scrum board that ships with a backlog by default. But you see here, I now have 3 columns. So this starts to look a lot more like my Scrum one. I have a Kanban, I have a board, and I have a backlog, and that item is in my backlog. But watch this. Look at the status here. When the item is in the backlog and I move it into this gray area, it transitioned. It went from the status of backlog to the status of selected for development, a transition. And now it's available on my board. When I switch over to the, where did it go? When I switch over to my Scrum one and I create an item, so I'm going to do the exact same thing to not confuse you, right? I'm going to hit create and I'm going to go, this is a task, right? Notice that it's not on my board. And when I go to the backlog, it's at the bottom of my backlog, right? Great, awesome. When I move it into my sprint, again, notice the status to do. When I move it into the sprint, notice that the status remains the same. And in fact, what changed was that we have a field that has been updated, the sprint field specifically, with that value of the sprint name. Now, notice when I click on the active sprint, it's still not there. I have to physically start the sprint. And then again, this is a little bit beyond Jira admin, but I think as a Jira admin, you should understand the fundamental differences of how the Kanban and Scrum template work. And so now that I've started the sprint, now it shows up. So again, they are very, very different in that respect, but I do have the ability, you notice that I'm in a Scrum one here, right? I have the ability to just create a board and make it of the type Kanban, add it to this specific project, right? And add it to this AKD one. If I could even, I just realized I can't even spell April very well, right? But if I do that, then I now have a Kanban board and I can switch between Kanban and Scrum, but this is going to cause all kinds of problems for you as a Jira admin. So not something I would recommend. All right. So hopefully I beat that to death. And now so thank you. Who was it? Who asked that question that took us down this journey of discovery? Sean. So thank you for taking us down this journey of self-discovery here. But that is essentially why, how that works and why you wouldn't want to mix the two. Because again, Atlassian, you would think, right, based on that UI, that they would be the same, but they're not the same at all. All right. So that's the projects. Let's go over to issue types. I want to start talking about issue types here. We're going to cover epics, the standard, the subtasks, and the hierarchies, and we're going to just jump into it. So issue types. What is an issue type? So everything in Jira that we do is captured in the form of an issue type. Now, I don't know why Atlassian went with the word issue because it has a negative connotation, right? But it is what it is. And just think of it like a task or a work item or just a piece of work that needs to be done. But because not all work is created equal, Atlassian gives you the ability to change or to identify, call out, if you will, what kind of work do we have. Now, what makes Jira so strong, so powerful, so popular is that Jira follows Agile as close as it can. It doesn't do it perfectly, but it does follow Agile pretty well. And because of that, we are going to be given Agile-based issue types. So we have something like an epic, we have bugs, we have a user story, which they just call a story, and then we have a task. Now, these ship out of the box automatically when you create the project. Okay, and depending on which template you pick, you may or may not have different issue types available. Now, as an admin, what I do as an admin is I am in this situation where I have to modify which issue types are available in each project and then globally across my Jira. And so I manage that by clicking on the gear over here on the right, and I click on issues. And so we sit here in this issue type section. So in this left side, we have this issue types, and we're going to talk about hierarchy, issue types, the schemes, and the subtasks in the next couple of minutes here. So I'll start off things here at the issue type level. So the issue types is literally just the location where you get to define, if you were to create like a pool or a bucket with things in it, these are the available items that are in your bucket. So these are the options that you can choose from. And so this is where you would go and create a brand new issue type for your organization. Notice that it's not really just for the project, because this section here, as you'll notice, we're in this like global administration screen. We're not really inside of the project itself anymore. We've left the project and we're in this bigger, more broader category of issue types as a global setting. And so this section dictates what issue types are available. As you can see, I have quite a few here. I have 3 pages worth of issue types, and making a new issue type is very, very easy. All you got to do, let's just say that you want a spike. Let me see if I have spikes in here. I don't have a spike. A spike is a very common Agile type of issue type where you want to pull in a spike into your sprint, or your team's asking you, hey, we want to capture or track spikes. You're like, great, awesome, let me go get you one. And then you come in here and you're like, uh-oh, it doesn't exist. Well, not a problem. All you got to do is click on this add issue type button over here, and you type in the word spike. And you can give it a description. I never do, but if you like documenting everything, make sure you give it a description. And then you have to pick standard issue type or subtask. 99% of the time, it's going to be standard. I'm going to tell you that one edge case where you want a subtask in a second, but you're going to just pick standard and click add. Now, this is enough. You could stop here, except there's one little problem. Once you add a lot of these, you're going to notice that, don't be an Alex, document who, what, why, and yes, I just don't like documenting. But yeah, don't be me. Don't do as I say and do as I don't wait. Do as I say, but not as I do. So go document. Okay, but anyways, when you add new issue types, they all default to this, what I call rather depressing gray square. And it's possible that as you add more and more issue types, you're just going to have a sea of these depressing gray squares. So I always like to go back into the issue type that I just made, and I click on these three dots on the far right, and I edit it, and then I change the avatar. So you can click right here where it says select image, and I like to change a new one. Now, for a spike, because we have questions, I like to give it the question icon and just click update. But now we're not quite done yet. So all we've done at this point is we made this issue type be available. Okay, it's just now it's an issue type that I can now use. So prior to like 2 minutes ago, this spike didn't exist at all, but now I have spawned it into existence. But just because it exists doesn't mean that it's in the project. I have to go and configure the project now in order to do that. Now there's two different ways to do it, but to not complicate your life, I'm just going to show you the way it's done here, or just from this UI, because I don't want to click too much for you. But once you bring that issue type into existence, you now click on issue type schemes, and we go to the scheme for our project. So we are right here in this Aprili, because again, I don't know how to spell April very well. And sorry, this one, April Jira admin class is the first one we want to look at. And we're going to click on actions, and we're going to associate. Maybe it's edit. Nope, it's definitely not associate. We're going to edit. Sorry about that. You will see throughout the rest of the course, Atlassian has a very big inconsistency between what is a configure, what is an edit. You'll see it's a very big problem. Okay, but anyway, so we're in here. We're in the issue type scheme. These do become mouthfuls, as you'll learn through the rest of the next 30 minutes. And so in this issue type scheme, this is shared by one project. This is good. Always, 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 as a Jira admin, if you're writing anything down, take this note down. Always check how many projects share your configurations, because it is very easy for you to have this number to say 100, and when I do my change, impact 100 projects. And so be very, very careful. As a Jira admin, brand new Jira admin, this is the biggest rookie mistake people make, at least the one that I remember still so vividly from 7 years ago, where I was not just impacting one project, but rather a series of projects. And then I get people yelling at me really, really quickly. So if you want to upset a lot of people in your company really, really quickly, blindly make these changes without checking that shared by. You'll thank me later, I guarantee. Okay, so once you've done that sanity check, we're only impacting that one project. And you can click on it. If you click on it, it will show you a list of your projects. So you won't be redirected or anything. And so now we're just going to come down here and we're going to look for our spike. And so just simply grab it and drag. Click and hold. Don't let go until you get here. And then just put it under the ones for the current scheme. Notice that this is the available one. This is the pool of available issue types. And we're just going to go from the right to the left. Very critically, hit save. It's not very prominent. It hits save. You got to scroll all the way down, hit that save button, and hit that save button. And yeah, so Bob is correct here. So as a disclaimer, right? What I just did, my food for thought was just be careful, be mindful. There are going to be times where you do want to be intentional, right? Where you do want to make these changes at a more standardized level, right? Which is good. This is the intention of why we use company managed projects. But just be mindful of it, right? Just don't blindly add things. Always double check and go, wait, is this supposed to be part of a standard, a template, or not? Because if the answer is no, then you got to break things down. And this is kind of where we end up in this differences. I think the word I'm looking for is juxtaposition, but I don't know English very well, so I'm gonna leave that one alone. But I think we end up in this world of we want standard processes, but we also want uniqueness. And what my biggest problem as a Jira admin is that I want as many people to be on a standard process as much as possible. Trust me when I tell you this is a really good idea. But every once in a while, we get this scrum master, we get a project manager, we get a director, somebody who's like, I just want this for my team. But once you standardize, once you build all these projects to be intertwined, you have to you have to take it out. Like it's not possible. Everybody gets all the configurations or nobody does, unless you start undoing the fabric of that intertwining, which is a pain in the butt. So I always push back and go, sorry, you're on a standard template. I'm not doing it. But that's just me being a bad Jira admin. Change management, Rodney says. Preach it. Brenda says, classic rookie mistake, one that you forget easily. Yes. Okay. So in the interest of time, I'm going to keep on going. So at this point, if I hit the create button, my project here now has, or should have, let me make sure I go to the right one. My project here now has a spike available. And so that's how we make items available. Now, very quickly, what is a subtask? So the subtask, you'll notice this particular issue type doesn't show up. It is in the project, but it doesn't show up. And it keeps defaulting to the wrong one. It doesn't show up. And the reason is because a subtask cannot exist by itself. It always has to be tied to an item. So if I were to go back, I'm going to open this up in a new new window here. If I go back over here and we click on this task, I have the ability to add a subtask. And the only way I can create these subtasks is by clicking this button here. And now I can do a sub one. Now, it is possible for me to change it to add more different types of subtasks or swap them out if you want to. But just know that the subtask will never show up on the create. It will never show up here. And it only ever shows up if you click this button. And then here you would have the option to pick what kind of subtask you want. So note that that's there. It's very rarely when I create subtasks, but it is something that is available. And then the last thing I want to talk about with respect to issue types here is hierarchy. So if you're on premium or enterprise versions of Jira, you are allowed to add above your epic as an issue type. And so this is important because if you are paying 2x the price, you may want to at least consider having something like an initiative or a theme. And this is really where we start blurring the lines with like safe methodologies, right? But this is an item that is very important. Atlassian has been making a lot of changes to how this works. But in theory, from the epic up, you can do almost whatever you want. But one cautionary word that I will give you, or statement. These are global changes. This is not like one team can get this setting or another team can get this setting. This is global. Everybody in your company, specifically the ones that are in this site, right? Specifically to the site, whoever's using this URL for this particular Jira inherits the same configuration. Now, it is possible for you to add multiple issue types at each level. It just does muddy the waters a little bit, but just know that these changes are global and they are only cloud. So as the Jira Life here is pointing out, these are global changes. So I want to let you know that these are, again, a little bit more an advanced thing, so I won't cover it beyond that statement here, but I want you to pay special attention to the epic. The epic is a very unique issue type. And when I go back to my issue types here, you'll notice that the epic has a hierarchy level of 1. Right now, I wouldn't mess around with epics too much. Atlassian is making changes so that we can in the future change it. I haven't quite seen it there yet, so I'm not ready to preach about it. But in the near future, Atlassian is working on the ability for me to change this name out. And so I don't use an epic if I don't want to use an epic. Especially if you're like a safe organization, you may want like something like feature first and then your epic. But that's just not possible today. So anyways, I'm going to pause right here for a second here to just check the comments. And before we go on to the next item, which is, I think, workflows. So any questions here? Let's see. Anything that we got a couple of star ones. So very great insight. Thanks for the Jira templates. Yep. Aside, are these free to use aside from the? I don't think I understand the question. Very great insights. Thanks. Are these Jira templates free to use aside the premium? Yes. So as long as you have the products, JSM, Jira Work Management, Product Discovery, Jira Software, you will get everything from a template-wise, except the one that clearly say premium on it. So yes, that is a good assumption. All right, next question is from YL. When we get to workflows, is it possible to create 2 different workflows, one for tasks? Yes, so that is exactly what we're going to do next. So we're going to talk about workflows. So while you are you're in the future here, so let's just jump into it then. I think that was it. So that's all my team start for me. So thank you, Bob. Special thanks to Bob and Rodney, who are in the background answering questions and also starring questions so that I can pull them up easier. Okay, so let's transition over to workflows. So what are we going to talk about workflows? So I'll briefly talk about statuses, what this arrow with an all means. We'll talk about transitions, board columns, the issue types, and then schemes. So let's jump into workflows. Now, if you thought this was going to be a class on PowerPoint, I'm so sorry to break your hearts, but yeah, I'm not a big PowerPoint fan, so we just like to be inside of Jira. So I'm going to start off at our projects. I'm going to go back to my Aprili project, and I'm going to make sure that I'm in my Scrum one. Doesn't really matter, but just wanted to make sure. And I'm going to click on project settings. And when I come in here, each project has what's called a workflow. Okay, so we're going to click on that. And this is the workflow. Now, this workflow, and I'm going to click on the diagram view here. This workflow is the statuses that are available for your project. Now, I definitely picked the wrong one because this is my Kanban one. I was trying to be in my Scrum one, but anyways, that's neither here nor there. But these are the statuses. So this little circle right here means when an issue is created, when somebody hits this blue create button, the very first status it's going to default to is going to follow this line and go straight to whatever is here. In this particular case, it says backlog, but yours might say to do, might say open, it might say new, whatever you want. Just know that it is critical that this circle is always, always, always attached to something. And that's the catalyst. It's the initiator of everything for your workflow. Now, everything beyond that, whatever you do after the fact, is entirely all up to you. This is where I think as a Jira admin, we get a little creative freedom, right? We have the ability to get creative here, to have some art into Jira and do whatever we want. And some of these, believe me, when I tell you this, I've seen some workflows that look like an Etch-a-Sketch, right? And so you definitely can get very creative with the artistic capabilities of what your workflows look like. But I will caution you that if your workflow looks like an Etch-a-Sketch, right? And I'm just going to quickly pull up an Etch-a-Sketch, right? If your workflow starts looking like, oh, let's find a good one here. What is a good, maybe a traditional Etch-a-Sketch? These are too good of a picture of an Etch-a-Sketch. But if the point is, if your workflow starts looking like this, where you have like a bunch of lines going everywhere and a bunch of connections everywhere, then your workflow might be a little too complicated. I'm a big firm believer in the KISS principle and the keep it simple principle. And the less is better. The less it looks like an Etch-a-Sketch, trust me when I'll tell you that it looks a little bit, it's going to be easier to maintain, and it's a better experience for your end users, even though your end users are going to want these spaghetti workflows, as Rodney is calling out here. So let's jump into the workflow, right? So how does this work, right? So out of the box, this workflow is going to apply to all the issue types. This is just how it works. But we have so much capability, so much power here. We have the ability to do one-to-one. So we can literally make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We can make 5 different workflows if we wanted to. Yes, for the audience here, just to make this conversation a little bit interactive, I think Ronnie's got a good point here. What is your preference between done or closed for your finished status? So answer in the comments here. Let's have this session a little bit more fun. So anyway, so what we're going to do is we're going to click on the pencil here to edit the workflow, right? And I'm just going to show you the mechanics of editing a workflow first, and then I'm going to go in and make a new workflow for my spike issue type that I made earlier. Okay, but what is in a workflow? What makes up a workflow? Okay, so as I've already explained what this ball does. And so to add a new status, if you wanted to add a brand new status that doesn't exist, if you want to add a completely brand new, you're inventing a status for the first time, you're going to call it Apple, right? If you have an Apple status, or you know what, let's just go with Mr. Sean here. Sean's like, I like accomplished. Let's go accomplished, right? If we want to add the status of accomplished, you'll notice that it has in parentheses this word that says new status. You have to click on it, or at least hit enter. But once you click on it, poof, you've brought it into existence, but not quite yet. You need to do another step when it is a brand new status, if you see those parentheses. And the next step is once you hit that, once you click enter, or you click on the new status text there, you will then need to click on add. And when you do that, because this is a brand new status, doesn't exist yet, Jira's going to ask you a critical question. One is going to ask you the description, right? Again, I don't do descriptions, but job security, hashtag, right? But you do need to pick a category. And because this is intended to be a done category or a green category, I'm going to click on done. And that is going to essentially make it green as opposed to blue or gray. And so once I do that, I can click the create button, and now I have my status of accomplished. But this status of accomplished doesn't actually do anything because there's no lines connecting to it in any way, shape, or form. It's an island, and it is an inaccessible island. And so we need to fold it into the workflow, because just by adding the status doesn't do anything. It doesn't help anybody at all. And so what we need to do is we need to fold it into the workflow. And there's 2 ways of folding a status into the workflow. The easiest way, I repeat, the easiest method is to click on the status and check this checkbox that says allow all statuses to transition to this one. When I do that, This workflow has now been brought to life and it is now part of the workflow. Okay. Couple of things you need to know. What this arrow means, this all means, it means that any status can transition to this status. And this basically, in a nutshell, means that if I'm in the backlog, I can go straight to accomplished. If I'm in selected for development, I can go straight to accomplished. From any status, if I'm in accomplished, I can go back up to backlog. I have no restrictions. I can go anywhere I want. This is the simplest way from an admin to make a workflow, but this is the hardest way for your teams to use a workflow, because when they go to transition, they're going to be presented with options. And all those options can overwhelm your end users. And so most of the time, they're going to get nervous. And I'm trying to find nice words here. Most of the time, they're going to find, basically, the biggest problem with this is that there's nothing stopping my end user from going from backlog to done and skip everything in between, right? This is, so a lot of people don't like this. And so what they do is they explicitly add transitions. So that's the second method. So if you don't like this, right, because your users can essentially, quote unquote, cheat, I think you have a behavior problem. I think you have an opportunity to coach your team from a cultural perspective, but this is not the platform for that assumption, right? But if you wanted to make this a little bit more rigid, where they have to follow a path, then all you need to do is remove these all items here, right? I recommend that you remove them. You don't want both. Very special cases, you want both, but most of the time you're going to want to do some explicit paths here. And so I'm going to try to do this. I don't think that it's going to let me do it in an active workflow. I'm in a workflow that belongs to a project. I don't think that this is going to work, but I do this 1,000 times a day and I always forget. But the other method is to explicitly add a transition. So I can then draw a line. So I'm clicking on one of these little circles that show up on the status. And I'm going to click on one of these and I'm going to drag it this way. And then I'm going to give it a transition name. So this should be a verb. This should be something you do, right? And so I'm just going to put selected. And of course, it didn't let me. Oh, so we're going to make a copy. So this is something that as an admin, you're going to run into a lot. Whether you want to add transitions or if you want to delete, because remember, we have these two statuses here. Let's just say we don't want done. We don't want to overburden. So we're just going to remove the status. But guess what? We can't remove from an active workflow. So what you want to get used to doing is you're going to want to grab this title. And I like to copy it because I have like really bad short-term memory, right? You want to grab that. You want to click on workflows over here on the left. And you want to go look for that workflow. It sounds counterintuitive because we were just in the workflow, but trust me, it's the only way to do it. Once you find it, you want to go to actions and you want to make a copy of it. This is going to make it inactive. Okay, this is very key. So I always give it a name because I don't like this copy of. You will know a rookie Jira admin when they have copy of a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. But I always like to update it, and then I like to give it a name here at the end of what we're doing. Now, I will tell you that the workflows are displayed in alphabetical order. So sometimes I like to put it at the beginning where it's like added, accomplished, right? And I just like to describe a little bit of what I did. And so once I hit copy, we'll be back in our workflow. We're going to add accomplished again. If I could type in, my cord wasn't all over the place. I'm just going to click add, right? And then now I can delete done. I don't want that status anymore. But now I have the ability to remove these checkboxes here. And now I have the ability to, let me drop this down here like this. Right now I have the ability to draw my line and say, this is selected. And now I have the ability to say start progress. Again, this is not how I would normally do it because I'm much more careful with my lines and how they look. But this is now an explicit workflow. Right, so this is what a more traditional workflow would look like, where you start at the circle, you move to backlog, you go to selected, you go to in progress, and then you go to finished. Every single one of these needs a verb or some sort of a name in the transition. Problem though, big problem here. If you're in progress and let's just say something happens and you want to go back, you cannot. If there is no line, if there's no explicit transition or a line going from one box to the other in the direction you want to go in, you will not be able to do that. So we have to add these lines back to say back to selected. And as you can see, the more statuses you have, the more lines you're going to be making, which is how we end up with this etch-a-sketch or spaghetti thing that Rodney called it, right? And so this is how we end up with all these extra lines. And that's why the all that this arrow here minimizes all that, because this lets me go back and forth however I want, but I need discipline, right? Or at least my team needs discipline. This lets you go back and forth only if you add the paths, which sometimes your team needs it just because, again, they're not disciplined enough to be able to handle all the workflows. Okay, so that's kind of the basics there. Now once we have this workflow, right? Once we've done this and we're like, okay, cool, this is as good as it's going to be. This is inactive, so we need to go and apply it to a project. And so I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to kill two birds with one stone here, right? And I'm going to come back into my April Jira admin class, right? This is, I wouldn't do it this way just because I'm going to contaminate my workflows and projects and stuff. But I'm trying, in the interest of time, I got I got 14 minutes to finish a lot more material here. So I'm going to go to my workflows. I'm in my project, right? And I just want that new workflow with accomplished. I want to give it to the spike, just the spike. And so what I do once I'm in the project, you could do this through the schemes, but I like to do it in the project first. It's just easier. Again, I can't remember names. So this takes away the memorization for me. And so I'm going to click on add existing. And remember, they're in alphabetical order, all the workflows. So whether they're active or inactive, they're all going to be here. And so that's why mine's at the top. I was intentional with calling it, starting with the letter A. And so now I can simply click on it and click on next. And now don't make this mistake, because here you're going to be like, well, you have to make a decision. Which issue type is going to get this workflow? So we're going to give it to the spike. And so I'm just going to select spike, hit finish, and that's it. Bob's your uncle, right? Except you'd be foolish to think that you were done. At this point, even though we've done the breakup, the spike now has my new special workflow with the oops, I guess I picked the wrong one. I definitely picked the wrong one. See, this is oops, and I don't want to click on that pencil. Wow, I am just like, let me do that again. I'm gonna add existing, and I'm gonna go find my workflow, which again, my memory, somebody help me. What did I call it? Because now I can't find it. Updated, added. I thought it was called an added, accomplished. Oh boy. What did I call it, folks? Okay, well, you know what? I'm just gonna stick with the one I have in the interest of not losing the room here. We have a different workflow that's going to the spike. When you are done with your changes, when you're done and you pick the right workflow, unlike me, who I picked the wrong one because I forgot the name, right? This is what I'm telling you, folks. It's important for you to remember the names or write things down, because my memory is bad. The last step you have to do is publish. And once you hit publish, you're going to click associate, and now those workflows are going to be mapped. And so now it is true, right? Like now this setting is saved, and my spike now has a different workflow. All right, so I got a couple minutes here. Let's go see some questions here. Starting up at the top, what about canceled as a final status? Great question, Sean. So I like to put canceled not as a final status as the end all of be all, but rather a supplemental status, right? I like to have canceled as an option where if you're in any status of to do in progress, right? Life happens and you might not need these things. And I like to move it to a status of canceled. Now, that brings up a great point. Like, do you need a status, or is the work really just done, but it's done canceled? And so this is where you as an admin have an existential crisis question you have to answer. And so we have this concept of resolutions. And so when you move an item to done, by default, the workflow, and again, this is a little bit more advanced. I'm only going to touch on this for a second, right? But when you move something to done, by default, Jira is going to mark it as done. You do have the ability to not do that, but rather prompt Jira and have the Jira prompt the user and say, hey, I noticed that you're moving to done. Why are you done? And they can pick from this list. And so you do, as an admin, have the ability to go to your resolutions here and add resolutions. Oops, you can't see it because of all the questions I have here. So you have the ability to add resolutions here and essentially add more options. So I could add something like canceled here, right? Now this will simplify the workflow, but there is no silver bullet here. I wish there was a pill that we can all take and we just be like, everybody would use Jira the same way. But there's different methods, and it's team to team specific. It's all about the team dynamic and the culture and their comfort with Jira. Do they want more statuses? So we can add a canceled status. Do we want a canceled status with the resolution of canceled? Do we want a done status with the resolution of cancel? So there's different ways to skin the cat. And this is usually where you consult with your Jira admins, right? This is why you either need to be a good Jira admin yourself, or your company outsources to somebody like release team who does come in and help you out, and they kind of coach you through the right options, because there's just so many different ways to skin the cat, and there is no like right answer for anything, right? It's not the answer to any Jira question is like it depends, right? And so my shout out is hire someone like release team to help you out with those questions. Can we have more categories and or change the color codes? No. Out of the box, you just get to do and progress and done. So it doesn't matter if you have 1,000 or 10,000 statuses. At the end of the day, they all funnel to do and progress and done. I will tell you that when we're looking at the workflow, this is a very interesting question that I want to point out here, and I'm losing my train of thought. So hopefully it comes back to me before I forget it. But when you choose, when we set these up to allow all, and boy, I picked the wrong one. Let me go back to one of the other ones that I had. Let's see if this one's better. When we have the all transition, right? When we have, whoa, this is not any better. Okay, I'm just digging myself into a foot here, or into a hole here. I'm trying to find a workflow that I haven't contaminated yet. Okay, here we go. When we have a workflow that has like the arrow with all, one thing you need to know, because again, answering Wile's question of like, hey, can we have different colors? The answer is no. But the other thing you need to be aware of is that if you have like to do, selected for development, backlog, open, new, and they are all gray, Jira is going to display it to you in alphabetical order by color. So when I'm clicking on the statuses and I'm seeing this drop down here, it's going to have all the grays in alphabetical order at the top, then all the blues in alphabetical order in the middle, and then all the greens in alphabetical order at the bottom. So just know that limitation. So a workaround, if you want to put them in the right order and not in alphabetical order, is put like A dot whatever, B dot whatever, or 1 dot whatever, 2 dot whatever. If you want to preserve, or do you want to keep that all transition off, but then you want to change, if you want to dictate the order but don't want to be restricted to a last name's alphabetical order, put letters or numbers on your workflow statuses. Can you delete a path? Yes, you can delete a path, but usually you want to do that in an inactive workflow. Sometimes it complains, sometimes it doesn't. It's a hit or miss, folks. Like I said, I do like 1,000 of these every single day, and it's always a hit or miss. I have not been able to see the right pattern. All right, I'm aware different issue types can have different workflows. Would you be able to change a workflow which was pre-assigned to a specific issue type? Yes. So basically, you're asking me, and let's go into this example here. So this is what I'm hearing, and this is a great question, a little bit more advanced, and we are going to run out of time here. So I'm sorry, we're not going to get to the rest of these things, but let me ask this question, because this is an important question. If I were to take my task and move it to this workflow, I simply click on the assign button here, pick my task, and move it. But if you remember, I had a task already, right? And so depending if the new workflow, if the destination workflow has a different status. So if you remove a status that I have today, and then the new workflow that I'm going to doesn't have that status, Jira is going to complain to you. And Jira is going to go, wait, hold up. What are you doing to me? Okay. And in this particular case, it's not doing it because the statuses are the same. So let me see if I can do something. No, this is too simple. But imagine that I got rid of done and I moved to accomplished, and over here we only had accomplished. So anything that isn't done, Jira, when I hit the publish button, Jira is going to go, hold up, wait a minute. I am done. The new workflow doesn't have that status. What should I be? And you have to map these out. And so this is where I usually sit with the person that requested the workflow change, because it's their responsibility to tell me what the new status should map to. So keep that in mind, Brenda. All right, and the last question here, because we are definitely running out of time here. Hey everyone, I'm an Elastic product manager on the Jira Enterprise Admin Experience team. I would love to chat with you about pain points and experience in Jira admins. Whenever you want, let me know. We have the Jira Life. You're more than welcome to come on and talk. We are we're going to be opening up time slots here for July, August, September very, very soon. So after Team 24, we are going to be making some announcements. So stay tuned for that. Okay. The last thing here, I'm going to do it real quickly, just 1 minute, because again, we're out of time here. But the last common thing that I do a lot as a Jira admin, something that I'm doing consistently, is that of custom fields. So I'm just going to show you very quickly how to add a custom field. You click on the gear, you click on issues, and this time you're going to click on custom field. When you're here, a couple things that I want to tell you. Number one, double check that the custom field doesn't already exist, because somebody will think that they're having an original thought, but trust me when I tell you, somebody else before them has already had that thought or that great idea. So double check. Like for example, this amount one right here, somebody's like, hey, Alex, I need an amount field. Can you please make me one? And you will blindly come in and start making one. Be very, very careful. Don't double check, because then you're going to be left with amount and amount and amount, and you do not want 2 or more copies of the same field name. It will create headaches for you. Now, this is a little bit more advanced, so I won't have time to talk about it, but trust me when I tell you, it will create headaches. So you want to minimize the amount of fields that have the same name. Now, the type of field is very important as well. Okay, you cannot change the type. So once you pick a type, the only thing you can do is delete it and then recreate it with the new type. But that's only works when you accidentally made it a one type and then they wanted a different. Now, if you want 2 amounts and one needs to be a text field and the other one needs to be a number field, that's where I recommend you make the name still unique, right? Amount number, or number of amount or something, right? Because the moment you have 2 fields and you're doing automations and you're doing things in those screens and stuff, you're not going to know which type it is, especially if you have 2 types with the same name. You're just going to hate being a Jira admin. So don't make that mistake. Give them unique names, because you won't be able to see this metadata here. You're taking a shot in the dark. But actually creating a field is very easy, right? So let's just say that I want a new field called, I don't know, I'm just going to do a drop down here. And then I'm going to go Bob's favorite pizza topping. I think that needs 2 P's. And we're going to put pineapple. And we're going to put pepperoni. Oh boy, why can I not spell? Right? And then we're going to put like jalapenos. Right? And so once I put my options, I hit create, Jira's going to ask you, where do you want to see this? And so I'm just going to, this is where you got to remember who's asking for it, so you can put it in the right place. And you just simply select the checkboxes that you want. You scroll all the way down, you click on update, and that's it. So now when you go into that project, that field is now available for you. Now make sure you come back. This is obviously a bit of a rush course, because we only have an hour to cover all of Jira. And so let's just kind of take a step back here and talk about some next steps, right? So number one, follow me on LinkedIn. We are at the end of the class here, so sorry we ran out of time here, but great questions. Keep in the chat though. We do come back and revisit these, so keep asking away. But follow me on LinkedIn. There's a QR code here. Feel free to scan it. Let me know in a message that you're coming in for my class. I have about like 500 requests, and so I'm still going through them all. But if you let me know like in a message that you're coming in because you watched this class, I'll accept you right away. Make sure you subscribe to ATech Tech Tutorials. So I do have 600 videos on how to use Jira. So if you like this and you want to take, again, these skills to the next level, all free content for you. Make sure you subscribe to the Jira Life. I can't tell you how much we are trying to grow this Jira Life, so it's very, very important. Watch all of our videos. Right now, we're trying to get all of our watch hours. And so anytime that you can just, watch all season 1 and watch all of season 2, they're all about an hour. Just let them play in the background here. Listen to some, maybe you'll hear a couple of Jira skills or Jira tidbits that you like. So help us out. Watch those hours. We are trying to get to those 4,000 hours. I have free courses on Salto, so if you want to check those out, again, QR code there. And I do have a Jira software for complete beginners. So if you're brand new to Jira just as a user, I do have a Udemy course on there. I'm working on Teachable. I'm working on for some instructor-led, but we do have a merch store. So if you want to get your official Jira Life t-shirts, check out that merch store. Everything's in that QR code. That's it for this class. Thank you so much for being here. And we'll see you. We'll do one more in May. And then I think June's the last one. So 2 more shots to come back. And thanks for being here. Bye.